Have you been watching the news, seeing all of the natural disasters that have happened over the last few weeks and gotten real concerned about your level of preparedness? What would you do? What do you have? How prepared am I? Well, a lot of people are, and a lot of people have messaged me about it and said, where do I start? Oh my goodness, I need help. Well, today I'm really excited because we are going to dive into our inventory assessment worksheet, which is a free PDF that we're going to walk through and will hopefully help you solidify your framework for preparedness and give you a little bit more confidence as you begin your preparedness journey. So stay tuned and we'll go through it here in a second. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cascadia Dispatch. Today I'm Casey, and today we have a very exciting episode. We are going to dive into our inventory assessment PDF worksheet that is available for free. The download link is in the description. Feel free to download it and then you can follow along with us. If you are new to the channel and you are interested in these sorts of topics, which you probably are, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notifications so you will know when we put out new videos. We usually put out new videos every week, so we would love to have you viewing and watching and sharing when we do that. So you're probably wondering, what is our inventory assessment PDF download checklist for you to use? Well, it is a 2-page document that we created that walks through some basics on kind of level setting your level of preparedness. So it is an inventory assessment not only of your gear, but also kind of your planning, your state of mind, what you're thinking, how you want to do it, and then building forward off of that. So why do you need an inventory assessment worksheet to help you with your preparedness journey? Well, when most of us are starting out on our preparedness journeys, it can seem like a daunting and overwhelming process. There are so many checklists, there are so many recommendations, there are so many things to get, and you can kind of get lost in, well, I need to get everything, I need to prepare for everything, what am I doing? Well, as we've addressed in some of our previous videos on what to prepare for and who you're preparing for, and we have a playlist on kind of starting your preparedness journey, sometimes you need to kind of just sit down and really map out what it is that you need to do, what is your goal, and then everything else kind of falls into place. So this inventory assessment is not a checklist. It is not designed to say, get these 12 things for your bug out bag. It is really more to help you crystallize what it is that you're trying to do, where you want to go, and then baseline where you're at to identify what you still maybe need to get, maybe what you have too much of, where you want to go, what are your next steps, and help you prioritize that. And then this worksheet will then be kind of it's an evolving process. So you'll probably do this once, and then maybe you do it again in 3 months, and maybe you do it again in 6 months. But you always want to be updating it and keeping track of kind of where you are and how close you are to your goals. So the first page is about crystallizing the framework of your preparedness journey. The first couple of questions are around, what are you preparing for? So are you preparing for an earthquake, a hurricane, some sort of other natural disaster? Is it job loss? What is that focus and primary event that you are most concerned about? And then also, how many people are you preparing for? Who are you preparing for? Are you preparing for your immediate family? Are you preparing for neighbors, community members? Are you dealing with 2 people, or are you planning for 12 people? It's really going to impact how you think about strategies and gear and resources. We have videos that dive into both of those topics, which I am linking to up above right now, that you can dive into more. We're going to be creating videos around more of this stuff as well. So again, it's a reason to subscribe if you haven't already. The next section on page 1 is around logistics. So who are your out-of-state contacts, and do you have out-of-state contacts? If there's an emergency, who is your kind of communication nexus outside of the disaster area where you and your friends or relatives are going to be funneling information back and forth, because likely you won't be able to communicate directly with each other unless you have some sort of a satellite communicator or ham radio or something like that. So you're going to want somebody who can be that kind of communication nexus for you. How about emergency documents? You know, we all have things like driver's licenses, birth certificates, social security cards. Where are those? Are they accessible? Are they organized? Do you know where they are and if they are current? Things like passports can expire. So where are those, and are those easily available and accessible to you? Emergency cash. This is something that a lot of people, especially now with credit cards, very few people I've met actually have cash on hand. But in an emergency, if credit cards don't work, you're going to want to have some cash on hand. So do you have cash on hand? Do you have it with you? Do you have it in your car? Do you have it at your house? Is it in a safe? How much do you have? What are you planning on doing with it? Do you want living expenses for a month if you needed to evacuate in cash? Or are you just hoping to be able to buy supplies with it while you stay bugged in for a couple of days? Those are the sorts of things you want to be thinking about in that section. The last section of page 1 talks about special considerations. So these are things that are specific to you. They could be things like within your geography and your climate. What are things you want to be concerned about? Does it snow a lot? Does it rain a lot? Is it super hot? You're going to want to make sure that you have those types of situations accounted for in your plan. You don't want to plan like you're living in the Arizona desert, but actually be living in the Oregon Valley where it rains all the time. You don't want to be planning for sunny California if you live in Minnesota and it's going to be below freezing and snowing for part of the year. So you want to make sure that you have taken that into account. You want to make sure that if you have pets, and you need special, you need pet food, you need special supplies for them, that you have that accounted for. If you have a medical condition or a disability of some sort, how are you planning for that? You're not going to want to realize that you need a prescription medication when the pharmacies aren't working. So do you have a backup of some prescription medication? Do you have an extra wheelchair battery, or do you have a charger that could charge a wheelchair battery if that was something that you needed? So those are the sorts of things that we kind of round out. And then when you look at all of the questions that we've asked, it kind of gives you an idea of what am I doing? Who am I doing it for? What are the things that are specific to me? And then that heads into the next section. The second page of the inventory assessment is probably what you were more expecting from an inventory assessment, which is more of like a checklist, but it's not a checklist. It really is a worksheet. It doesn't tell you what you should have or what you shouldn't have. This is about giving you ideas and letting you kind of assess where you are right now, and then where would you like to be, and identify your gaps or surpluses as they may be. The table on page 2 is organized using the P.A.C.E method across the top. So the columns are organized by primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And I've given some rough timelines to those. The way that P.A.C.E works is it's a prioritization system where you are planning on what is your primary, maybe in this case, let's say gear. So what's your primary piece of gear? What's your secondary piece of gear? What's your alternate piece of gear? And then what's your emergency piece of gear? So if you were thinking about food, your fresh food in your refrigerator might be your primary. Your alternate food may be whatever's in the freezer that's got to thaw out. Your contingency is maybe your canned goods, and then your emergency is maybe freeze-dried or kind of dry rice and beans that you would be reheating. The idea there is you have kind of time frames associated with whatever the item is, your familiarity with the item, and then also the duration of the emergency as to how long that item is going to need to last you. As you look down the rows, you'll see that each row is a category of gear or supplies. So things like food and water and shelter are all there. And then next to them are examples of items that you might associate in that category. Things you might want to have, and a rough kind of prioritization of what might go into each of the categories within P.A.C.E. So you may have water bottles as your primary, and you may have gallon jugs as your alternate, and then you might have 55-gallon drums as your contingency and emergency. It's totally up to you. The examples are there to give everyone a baseline idea of what might go into a category like this and allow you to think about other things that might work there as well. And then also to give you an idea of what are the different types of things that might go in there as it relates to P.A.C.E. So you're not just thinking about the thing you're familiar with, but also thinking about, well, what might an emergency item here look like? Or what might a longer term solution be to whatever the category is? Now that we've addressed how the table is filled out, it's time to actually do the filling out, which is the fun part. So the way I would recommend is to go row by row, category by category, and fill out each category across all the columns. Do your best. This isn't a test. No one is grading you. But the idea is to understand realistically what you have right now. What are the supplies that you have in every single one of these categories, and how would you think about laying them out from a priority perspective using PACE? In some instances, you may have one thing that you put in all 4 categories or 2 categories. Like shelter, you may put a tent in primary and alternate, and you might put a tarp in contingency and emergency. You could probably use them for both, but it maybe gives you an idea of the priority there. For food, you may have 2 or 3 different types of food that you would want to lay out. And this gives you an idea of how you would start to think about that. So your refrigerator or freezer food is probably going to be first in your primary. Then you're going to have alternate, which may be canned goods or packaged goods. And then, emergency and contingency, depending on what you have, could be dried food, could be more canned food, could be freeze-dried food. So you could have very easily in the food category 4 distinct options, whereas maybe in shelter you would only have 2. And that's totally fine. Fill it out this kind of first time as best you can with what you have. Okay, so now that you're done, it's time to put your pencils down and send it in for your grade. Nope, just kidding. We're not going to grade it. Nobody's going to grade it. The only person who's going to grade it is you. And it's going to be graded based on your level of comfort with whatever your kind of table looks like. I would definitely recommend going through it and circling any item where you think you are either lacking or could be doing better, whether it's an area in a category, whether it's an entire category, whether it's a specific time interval or a prioritization level. But circle, use a red pen if you want to, all of those areas where you feel like you could use improvement. And that then is going to be your plan. So as you look at this, you'll be able to visually see very quickly where are you strong and where are you weak. And probably you didn't realize how strong you were in a lot of areas, and you also probably didn't realize how weak you were in a couple of areas. So it's going to help you orient based on then your plan from page 1 and your kind of gear assessment of page 2 of really where do you need to go next and what does your preparedness journey look like going forward. Do you need to add more supplies because you actually have more people than you thought you did and you've been planning for 4 and you actually have 8? Do you need to add different types of equipment? Do you have kids that, actually, you want to have a headlamp for all of the family members, but the adult headlamps are too big for the kids. And so I actually need to go out and get some kid headlamps. Those are the things you're going to start to recognize and then prioritize based on kind of your own comfort, what you're preparing for, how you want to do it, and really how you want to fill out this chart. So that is going to do it for today's episode. Again, I'm really excited to share this assessment with you. I think it's going to help. A lot of people always ask me, where do I start? I don't know. I feel completely unprepared. Hopefully this gives you a means to really understand and get control of that kind of fear and overwhelming feeling and say, actually, I may not have everything I want, but I'm better prepared than I was or than I thought I am, and I have a plan forward. This is something I would recommend that you do either every 3 months, every 6 months. You probably don't need to do it every day because we all have lives and things going on. But it's a good thing to kind of go back and look at and just see what have I accomplished in the last 3 months or 6 months? What has changed? What are my priorities? Going into winter, going into summer, are there different things that I want to put at the top of that list? What are the things that I want to be looking at when there are sales? Every season has different kind of preparedness items that go on sale. And if you know what you're looking, if you know what you're missing, you can then do a better job of trying to find deals and coupons and sales for the things that you feel like you're lacking to boost you up overall. So thanks again for watching. Again, there's a link in the description down below if you'd like to download the assessment and take it for yourself. If you have any questions, please go ahead, leave them in the comments below. You can get on our social media and message us there as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be putting out additional videos talking about each of these categories, talking about PACE, talking about kind of all of the different elements that went into this, as well as we are working on some checklists. They're not going to be your standard checklist because I'm not a huge fan of standard checklists. I feel like they kind of get a little overwhelming, but we're putting together some sort of a checklist that will kind of be an augmentation on top of this that you can go and kind of use. So again, stay tuned, stay subscribed, and thanks again. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.